Today I have a new large thrower style flashlight from Klarus. It's the new XT32 kit. This is a big flashlight. It produces 1200 lumens. It can throw over 1000 meters according to Klarus. Thanks to flashlightzz.com for sending this one out to me to take a further look at. This light is made from aluminum alloy. It's nicely machined with no machining marks anywhere. All the edges are broken nicely by chamfers. And in most cases, the anodizing is very smooth, as you can see here. Starting at the tail cap, you have two mechanical buttons. You've got the main on-off here as a rubber switch, and then you have this momentary blade-style switch. The rubber button is also momentary, as you might be able to see, as is this blade switch. There are recesses, as you can see, cut out on both edges for both switches, and what that does is it kind of hampers the light's ability to tail stand. It will tail stand, but just barely, and only if your surface is perfectly flat. My table here slopes a little bit towards me, so it won't tail stand if I have it mounted the other way. There is a cutout here for a lanyard you can put on, or in this ring here, there's also another cutout. More on that in a second. If you look down here, the knurling isn't very much here. It's kind of smooth. There is no knurling on the cigar grip, and this is one of the problems I have with the light here, that this extra tactical grip ring, I'm not exactly sure what it's called, it spins. I wish it was tighter. I've got the cap tightened all the way down. It's like it needs an extra O-ring or something in there. That is removable if you want. If we look at the threads here, you can see that they are Acme style. They're not square cut, which is a little bit disappointing, but not a big deal. They're clean, they're nicely done. If we look inside the tail cap, you can see there's that gold ring nicely done, so you won't get any corrosion or anything. And this is a dual spring like we saw in the Klarus ST10. Nice and stiff, and that should work well for if this light is mounted on a weapon. Further down this light, you have this area here that looks like you'd have a pocket clip attached if one was included with this light, but it's not, and so with such a big light, this would be odd to include a pocket clip. My guess is this is for a rifle mount here, and it's got a tube diameter. This light does is 23.4 millimeters, and the description on the Klarus' website says the mount is for a light of 25.4 millimeters, so I'm guessing that would fit just fine, but I don't know. I don't have it to test exactly, so if you do buy it, make sure it does fit. Working my way down to the cross hatches here, I really like this. It's fairly aggressive knurling, and it's going both directions. Then you've got these cutouts here that, I don't know, maybe they're just for style. They do add a little bit more grip. They're not something you see on a ton of lights, so I like that. And you've got two flat panels here with all your pertinent information, serial number, trying to export, and a note telling you that yes, this does have batteries in it. And on the back side, you have it be flat. Now, this is one thing to look at and might be a little bit hard to show on camera, but this tube doesn't line up perfectly with this button. This tube is just turned just a little bit, and if this was adjustable, I'd screw it and be just fine, but this is Loctited in place, and I really wish this flat part would line up with the button. Maybe that's me being just a little bit OCD. Working my way into the head of this light, the diameter, as you can see, increases as we go up. There are increased heat sinks here and some milling work. You could probably put the lanyard here as well. There's just a little bit of groove there. The button itself is flat with a center that's got an LED. This bezel looks like you could remove it if you wanted to. The button itself is flat and plastic. It's not rubberized. And as you can see, there is no tripod adapter on this light, and that is disappointing to me. I wish there was one right here or up towards the head just a little bit. I like those on my bigger lights like this. You've got some increased heat sinking here, and you've got the bell of the light with some knurling and grip here. I suspect this screws off, but I didn't try real hard and get it off. There is a big deep reflector in there. It is smooth, and the LED is down at the center, very centerized and nice and neat. The lens is covered with anti-reflective coated glass and is pretty thick. I don't think you'll have any trouble with this breaking on you without it receiving a severe impact. This is a pretty tall light. I measured it at just over 24 millimeters in total height. The head at its thickest is 64 millimeters, and at its narrowest is 23.22 millimeters. This light is rated for IPX8 water and dust resistance, and total weight with the included batteries is 358 grams. This light uses a Cree XPL HI LED with a maximum of 1200 lumens. It's cool white, but in my opinion it's not too cool. I didn't notice an extreme Cree rainbow, but I'm not super sensitive to this either. The beam pattern is pretty typical of a long distance thrower like this. At a distance of shorter than 1 foot, there's a donut shape in the beam. Let me see if I can show you that. And here I've got it on one of the lower modes, and you can just kind of start to see that. If I bump up, there we go. I've got this about 4 inches off the table or so, 3-4 inches, and you can see that donut in the beam. Not a huge deal, and once you get it over about 8 inches or a foot or so, it all smooths out. At longer distances, there's a very bright and intense center with a large but minimal spill and hard edges. At long distances, the beam does give off a slight bluish tint in the air, but you really don't notice it on the intended target. Outputs go from 20 lumens to medium at 100 to high at 400 and turbo at 1200. I do wish there was something kind of between that 400 and 1200, and since this is a thrower, the important number is candela, which is 250,000 in turbo mode. This light uses the Klarus ITS, or Intelligent Temperature Protection System, and my output graphs and runtime graphs indicate this. You can see it bounce up and down, and that's the temperature protection kicking in, letting the light cool down, and then it warms, and then it brightens back up, essentially. What's disappointing is the slow decline from 100% output pretty much instantly. This decline is slow and gradual, but at 10 minutes, it's about 95% output. At that 10-minute mark, there is a sawtooth decline for the next 10 minutes as the light outputs and decreases in brightness according to the temperature, finally stabilizing at about 70% output. The 55 to 110-minute range, the active cooling management and battery voltage management is pretty active. I did notice a step down when I was out filming my night shots on a cold night when the temperature was about 14 degrees outside. So that's something I really wish Klarus would maybe improve for a future version, is since this is a thrower and a searchlight, maybe a hunting light, I really think that turbo should last at turbo brightnesses for longer. So here are some table shots so you can get an idea of this light. At this distance I've got the light on the table, and you can see the brighter center with the hard spill, and I'll show it off here off the table just a little bit more. And here is the beam shot on the table. You can see that really hot center show off in the middle when I have the light about even. If it tilts either way, you obviously that skews that result. I've got the night shots here for the Klarus XT32 thrower. I'm out at a local lake, and it is a snowy night. There's lake's frozen, and from where I am to the far bank is about 900 meters. The Klarus XT32 is rated for over 1,000 meters, so let's take a look and see what it does. So here the light is on low, and I'm pointing it up. You can just start to see it out there on the camera. I'll pan down a little bit. You can see the bank, and this just isn't very impressive, but if you're just using this for hiking or something short, you could. If I bump up to medium, it starts to throw now. You can see this bank that's in front of me, maybe 110, 150 yards. Bumping up, you can see that bank a lot better now. And here is turbo. And this is hard to tell on video, but you can see the beam on the camera pretty well. This is a cool white. This is a Cree XML V3 LED, I believe. And you can see it throws nice. Let's do that deep, smooth reflector. It really is a smooth ball light. If I pan down, you can see it's got a decent amount of spill to it as well. I want to compare this to my Olight M3XS UT. You can see the Cree has a lot yellower of a tint. It's almost green if you look at it there up close. It's a very similar reflector shape if I compare the two. If I go long distance, they're fairly comparable. I can't say one works remarkably better than the other. It's really down to tint choice. I usually prefer neutral white, which neither of these are. I'm really liking the Klarus light because of the tint. It's it is cool white. It's more neutral. The O-Light really does have a green tint, especially on the snow. In my night shots, I thought this light performed as I thought it would. It's very similar to my O-Light M3X SUT that I previously reviewed, but the beam I found to be a more pleasing tint. This light has two main modes, number one being tactical and number two being hunting. I left the light in hunting most of the time for my testing because it doesn't have access to strobe on the tail cap, and that's just not a thing I actually use much. So in tactical, you have access to one-touch strobe and one-touch turbo on the head with the two buttons on the tail cap. You have access to one-touch to low, one-touch to SOS, and memory modes as well as lockout. You have access to all those modes on the front button as well. It's just a little bit complicated to get there. And I'll put in a screenshot of the manual here. To really understand these modes, you need the manual and you need to study it. This is not a super easy mode light. In hunting mode, you have one touch turbo, one touch low on the tail cap. You have no access to strobe on the tail cap, but on the front button you've got SOS, memory, and lockout, as well as the other main modes. The diagram in the manual does a good job of explaining all the different modes and how to get to them, I feel like. I won't lie, both are a bit complex. For me, I like the hunting mode best because I have access to turbo and on the round button, and then I've got access to the low on the blade switch. You can press and hold on that blade switch and bump up in modes if you want, and you long press on it again to shut it off. The front switch allows you to cycle through the modes as well, or double click to enter strobe directly. Electronic lockout is available, but only for the side switch. So you press and hold that front side switch for 5 seconds to unlock, and you press quickly 3 times to unlock. The LED indicator here at the front is a power indicator, and it runs for the first 5 seconds the light's turned on. It goes from green to orange to red to flashing red, and that only works when you're using the 18650 batteries. Included in the kit are two Klarus 2600 mAh batteries that are button top and protected cells. These appear to be the same that were in my ST10 review that I reviewed just a couple weeks ago. I have no complaints other than I wish the capacity was larger. This light has a working voltage of 5 to 12.8 volts, so CR123s will work, but you need 4 of them, and 4 18350s will not work because the voltage is too high. You'll break something. One thing I should also note is that in the manual, Klarus states run times for this flashlight, but they are using 3500 mAh batteries instead of the 2600 mAh batteries that the light actually ships with. I think this is a bit deceitful, and I really wish Klarus would be either honest and rate the light with the batteries it ships, or at least list them, or they would ship the light with a higher capacity cell. So one of the other things the Klarus kit included was a charger. And this is a Klarus branded charger, and I really don't have any major complaints with it. A full charge, it stopped charging the cells at 4.14 volts on both cells, well within the normal spec. The charging speed on the back here is listed at 0.5 amps or 1 amp, depending upon your DC voltage. And I had no problems with this, other than it was a little bit low. I measured at 0.85 amp draw during charging both cells that were near empty. I should also note that this charger is capable of nickel metal hydride, nickel cadmium, and 3 different types of chemistry of lithium-ion batteries. This charger does take USB 5 volts in, and it will output USB 5 volts. And you can use this as a power bank for both cells in tandem or each cell independently, which is nice. And I was able to do an output charge of about 1 amp into my phone. This light comes in a nice compact box given its size, and it's too big for me to fit in frame, so I'll have to insert a picture of it. It's got a almost like magnetic closing, and it's a heavy-duty cardboard, and it unfolds nicely, but it makes the box off balance itself. Inside, the light is protected in foam, and the batteries are pre-installed, but did have a plastic separator that needed removed prior to use. It also includes extra O-rings a USB cable for charging the power bank, and a lanyard. It also includes a holster here that the light goes in, and the head just fits in top and the tail sticks out here. It's a little bit awkward, I think, to use if you're going to use this a long time. You might want to carry it on your side, far side, or maybe in the back, and it does have a Velcro there to attach to your belt and a D-ring. The lanyard here itself, I have no problems with the strap part and this ring. It's nicely printed Klarus, but for such a large, heavy light, what I don't like is this thin cordage here. It's got a plastic set core, but I just feel like this is a weak point over time. I wouldn't depend on this lanyard. If you really want to lanyard with this light, make something out of paracord, and I think you'll have a lot better, more secure system. Klarus sells some additional accessories on their website, such as a tape switch and rifle mount, as well as colored filters to fit over the front lens, and they kind of market this as the hunting package. The Klarus XT32 on the bottom here is very comparable to my Olight M3 XSUT I reviewed several months ago. Both throw over 1,000 meters, both throw over 1,000 lumens, and they have nice tight beams and throwers. The biggest difference between them is the LED being used, and even that, and the controls. The Olight uses a de-domed Cree XPL that creates a really green cast to it, and personally I find that a bit undesirable. The Klarus XT32 uses a Cree XPL HI V3 LED that, although it's a bit too cool for my taste and tint, it's better than that green cast. I also like the tail switch and two different modes that are on the Klarus. I like that the tail switch is better for tactical or hunting, and the front switch works just fine for everyday use. I do prefer the shortcuts that are on the Olight just because I'm a little more used for them. I like the knurling that's on the Olight a little bit as well. I wish both lights had the ability to screw into a tripod adapter, but evidently that must not be common with this style of light. I like the Klarus XT32 thrower. As I mentioned, the tint is a nice change over the Olight that I have, and performance and throw work very similar to that Olight, but with a better tint, and I have no doubt it'll reach 1,000 meters. I like the dual tail cap buttons, and I think they're especially useful in the hunting UI. I wish it was drilled and tapped to take advantage of a tripod adapter. Since hunting is one of the main uses for this light, I'd prefer if they would include a tape switch over the charger. That said, the included charger, although a little bit slow, works really well, and the dual USB power bank feature is just a nice bonus. If you're looking for a new hunting light or one that might mount to a rifle, I'd really consider this one. It covers a long distance, and if you're okay with the weight, you should definitely look at it. I'll have a link in the description box below on where you can pick this light up on flashlightzz.com. It's one I definitely recommend looking at if you're looking for a 1,000 meter plus tactical thrower. If you'd enjoy this video, please make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Doing so continues to help me bring videos like this to you.